Good morning, everybody, and thank you for joining us here today. There's always a great audience to tune into the EQR Resources update. And sitting pretty up in the north of Australia, we have the CEO, Kevin MacNeill, and his chief technical geologists as well, Tony Bainbridge in the background. And we're going to cover off today on this pretty exciting acquisition for the company, as well as some other things, which should see EQ Resources shareholders pretty happy as you move into becoming a global player in this market. Kevin, let's kick off though with a bit of what's been happening on the side. The Mt Carbine Rodeo. There's some great photographs. It looked like a great evening.
Yeah, it's we sponsor it every year, and the quarry sponsored it, Peter, for a number of years. So yeah, it's always a great event. We probably had 120 people on our side, and we had several shareholders that we invited did pitch up, and a lot of them pitched up on the great migration of the grey nomads. I also had quite a few shareholders after the webinar. I opened my mouth and said, "You're welcome," and they very were welcome. I usually do a tour around the site at 10 a.m. every morning. I'm here, and the boys hopped in with me, or girls too, as well.
And look, that's pretty important. ESG has always been a pillar of the way EQR operates, with workers not having to fly in, fly out, living in the local area, and what you've been able to achieve. It really puts you in good stead with the community.
100%. We've had full support, no complaints from the community whatsoever, and we're worried about it as obviously you start blasting, and so we spent a lot of time with the community prior to that, getting them understanding what was going to happen, the influx of people, and but everybody is all on board, very, very supportive of it.
And I also have seen you on the circuit. You've been out seeing brokers, investors at various conferences, just telling them the story, trying to get their message out about what you're building.
Yeah, 100%. I went to Noosa. I don't do many, but I like going to Noosa, and that was my third year in a row, and I was able to show them the share price increase 3 years running, along with the net present value of the company has increased accordingly, up 300% from the time I took over here. So I know there's some long-term shareholders that are in at higher prices, but we'll get there.
Yeah, it's been good, and I know that at the booth you've been very busy. One of the most popular booths at that conference. So let's get into this pretty sensational acquisition and the plan ahead. Kevin, I might just hand it over to you from here.
Yeah, I'll give you a couple. I put together a few slides, and we just put them out on the market just now as we speak. So just to start off with here is that we are ramping up production. That we started late June, July. We got into 110 tons in July, and we're hoping to get 130 to 150 tons this month. We're hoping in that range, and then we'll ramp it up again. Tony could probably tell you a little bit more, but we're just getting into the where the ramp is going now and going down. So by the time we get into the juice, the real high grade stuff in the central area of the pit there, we're kind of out on the limbs, but nevertheless it's like rocket fuel to us. We're seeing some numbers that we've never seen through this plant before, but again, we're seeing the higher the grade, the higher the recovery that we're seeing. So if we have a very high recovery or a grade at 0.5, we generally see over 90% recovery. If it drops to less than 0.1, then we're at 79-80% recovery. So I don't know, Tony, you want to say anything about this slide?
Yeah, I think it's what we're doing is starting to classify our ore so we can deliver different grade tungsten ore to the plant, and we have a blending program because some of this high grade's even a little high for the plant, so we tend to want to blend that in. So here on the wall we've got some medium grade in yellow, high grade there in pink, and you can see all the veins, the high grade king veins that we like. Obviously for us, we're learning how to blast waste and ore differently. So we're still a little bit in early stage, and we've just managed to clean up the floor. So I think over the next 4 or 5 weeks, we'll start to deliver that high grade ore in separate quantities now.
And on that, the last announcement regarding Mt Carbine was record production. So that's going to be pretty pleasing.
Yeah, no, it is, Peter. And just like I said, that was one of the boxes that we're worried about is the plant going to be able to recover this high grade ore? Are the XRT sorters going to be able to recover it without loss? And yes, in both cases. Do we still have work to do? I think I can get even a higher recovery with a few more tweaks in the plant. So that's good. So yeah.
Just finally on that, the sorter has been a major part of the success you've had there. Given that you've been also using that over the last 12 months and more through the stockpiling, that must be a pretty important piece of equipment now that you really understand.
Yeah, it is, Peter. And it was an important part of our strategic rationale for getting into Saloro as well, because we understood when we started to do the due diligence on Saloro, they never had an XRT there yet. And we've been working with them for quite a while, looking at XRT ore sorting, because we believe that is really the key to unlocking that deposit in a big way to make it more economic than it already is. Sorry, Peter, you're on mute.
What sort of efficiencies do you think you'd be able to bring across to the new mine from what you've been learning there at Mt Carbine?
Yeah, it's really that's the reason, one of the big reasons, and I just put together a couple of slides here just on our strategic rationale, if you don't mind, Pete. I'd just like to, and people have seen me present. This is really important. This slide here, as tungsten, little old tungsten being the most economic mineral listed by the European Union. And why is that, right? It's in all the lathes, cutting tools, everything for manufacturing has some sort of cutting tungsten carbide bit in it. And without tungsten carbide, these economies and these manufacturers will suffer greatly. So we've certainly been congratulated by the Raw Material Alliance and several others of the big European agencies for getting involved into this program. So I just wanted to kind of put that out, Pete. And then, and part of the other strategic rationale is just like, this makes us the largest tungsten producer outside in the Western world. And it's very strategic for us, and to get a critical mass and have horizontal growth opportunities that we've identified in both districts, that both in Spain and around Mt Carbine is a very critical. I mean, and the other thing that we had really good synergies with the management at Saloro, and the management at Saloro are very, very strong. They have just excellent skills in operating. I think what we bring to the table is some of the metallurgical aspects of the plant. They have great availability, they got great mining, they got great ESG, they have all the things covered, but their metallurgical recovery has been lacking. And that's where we saw opportunity as EQR to add value to the operation.
And they've been in operation there for quite some time, Kevin. There'd be a lot of awareness of that company as a supplier of the critical mineral to European customers.
Yeah, and we have a lot of the same customers as well. They sell to Mason, Nuifao, and GTP, and all the other ones that we've sold tungsten concentrate to. So it just gives us a bit more mass and pull on strategically doing that. And Mt Carbine and Barruecopardo deposits together are very globally relevant, right? As if investors are looking at a tungsten play, we feel this will be the one that will produce. Both of us have very low capex and debt, and yeah, it's a good opportunity. And we're strategically aligned with ESG as well.
Well, on the acquisition, can you give us a bit more of a summary of the details of that acquisition and part of that Oaktree transaction that some questions have been coming in around?
Yep, yeah, sure. I guess the the big thing that we've seen, the miscommunication, or probably our fault, is just around the 80 million that we acquired in shareholder loans from that EQR has acquired in shareholder loans from Oaktree, and that's just part of the tax structuring. That's not owed externally to any other parties. That's owed to EQR on closing this transaction. So the actual debt on it, just to be absolutely clear, is 35 million euros is debt. Now that mine probably has over 200 million Aussie dollars in it, and over 100 million euros definitely in it. And it's all, the quality is there. When you go through that plant, it's a top tier quality operation all the way around. It's a beautiful operation. So just on the deal terms, so there's 35 million debt on it. We get the whole operation for $1. Oaktree are going to see it as a bigger tungsten company and have taken a position into EQR. And Oaktree have been a great partner through this, and they've been down to see our site. We've been up to Saloro. So they've been an absolute stellar partner in this, and we see them as a very strategic partner going forward, introducing us to some US brokerage houses and European brokerage houses that we haven't really had access or gained access to yet. So we see this as a real, once we get out and start telling the story. And as usual, Pete, between Carbine, we kind of don't over promote until we deliver goods. So we want to get the recovery up at Saloro and EQR pumping out tonnage, and then we'll get on the road solidly and tell the story.
Okay, and that'll be, investors will be looking forward to hearing some of those details once you've got hard numbers. What are your immediate and midterm plans for Saloro?
Yeah, Tone, do you want to take them through some of the mining aspects of the project?
Okay, we're quite excited about this because not only of the mine, but the regional exploration potential. These series of slides you see here is over the last 4 years. You can see how it started as just an old prospect, which was mined in the 1800s to early 1900s. And then in 2019, they actually kicked off a full operation. So the pit is centered around that water, or that was actually an old pit that's full of water there, Kevin's highlighting. And as you see, you'll see the pit growing through there. It's a large resource, slightly bigger than Mt Carbine in terms of contained metal, well drilled out, well defined. And we're excited because there's so much upside potential. Maybe we can show a bit of that in the next slide. Oh, there's a nice picture. You can see the plant there. As Kevin said, it's a real pleasant plant. It's top of the line, crushing, processing. We just want to more or less go in and add our sorters to that circuit. Because the thing that with this deposit, very similar to Mt Carbine in that it has very coarse scheelite, so it's easy to pull out with the sorters. We think that they were grinding it a little much in the early stages. So we want to get our sorters in there, do what we're good at, and move forward.
Tony, just looking at that, you're quite right. The pit doesn't look too different. In terms of the deposit itself, are there similarities between Mt Carbine, like depth and veining?
Yeah, absolutely. They're both sheeted vein systems, and we've spent a lot of energy and time to learn about that system. And what we can see at Saloro is that the system's right at the very top. So we've got the whole system intact. They're only sort of looking at the top 150 meters. We know that there's often, an enrichment zone in these systems, and we're going to go hunting for that. But as it stands, it looks good. And, they've got a well-designed plan for the next pit 5, pit 6, pit 7. It's all well mapped. These are very professional team members. So pleased to have them.
Yep. So Pete, just before, our big thing, again, like I said earlier on, right, is on the XRT sorting is one of our specialties that we bring to the tungsten business, and we understand sorting very well, right? And we really seen that as the opportunity to upgrade 10 times coming into the plant. So we may bulk out the resource and reserve a little bit more, dropping the grade into the future, picking up more tons, and increasing the sorting capacity big time on that. So that's kind of our game plan going forward, right? And we see very good recoveries already on the one existing sorter. They've just turned it on over the last couple of weeks. We've been involved in that operation now for a few months and getting the recovery up another 10, 11% from the time when we got involved with it. And we see that going another 10, 15% from there. So we think we can add some significant upside into that operation very quickly. And I'll let people read that at their leisure, but just on the, I think one of the more exciting things is some of the work that Tony does is that when him and I traveled together up there, but some of the things that he saw when he was there, and Tony, I'll let you describe.
I think what we saw was that was a little bit too run by mining engineers. No offense to those, but the geology side of it was lacking. It was an old mine and they just took the numbers and crunched them and not think about what they're doing. So we want to add that geology back into the project. We have some good plans, and when you look at it, there's a lot of areas to go looking. They don't understand their fluid flow models, so they don't know where to look next. They don't understand their structure too well. So all these things are very important in these processes, and we want to get involved in that.
Well, we know that Mt Carbine is a multi-generational ore body. Do you see the same as that for Saloro?
I think what we're good at is brownfields exploration now, picking up these pits and saying what else is around. And I think there's a slide on that coming up, but we're going to do the same with Wolfram Camp. So you can see here that in the red square down the bottom left there is the Barracuda mine, where we just talked about and saw the photos. But you can see within their licenses, the yellow area, that there's 4 other old historical mines. So we're going to start looking at those. They haven't been drilled for 100 years. So it's a lot of work to do there. And then when you zoom in on the picture on the right, you can again see the pit is on where Kevin's got the mouse there on the right, and there's some immediate other ore that we could feed into that plan. And that's the tungsten soils there. So you can see the strike length continues on for many kilometers. So we're excited about that. As always, there's lots of work to do, but we think it'll yield the results we're looking for.
And on that work, a couple of questions have been about how you'll manage to run the 2 operations, different parts of the world. But Kevin, you said they've got a pretty good operating team already in place that you pick up the whole lot.
They are, and that was one of the critical part of our discussions early on, right? Is to understand, do they have, it's difficult going into a new country, obviously, and I understand shareholders' concern about that, right? But we understand the management. We met with them. We spent several days with them in the plant, and they're very capable, more so than even us in some ways. They run a very good operation, right? I think we have complementary skill sets, so right, and that we have some stuff to add to them. They have some stuff to add to us. So we see this, and like I said, we have been engaged with them now for several months. And so it's not like a big shocker. So we've had our metallurgical teams there and people on the ground. And so yeah, and the other alignment, Peter, is on our ESG. We both have similar values in the ESG credentials. And I'll let people read this at their leisure. I know we don't want to waste too much time, but they do a huge amount of work with birds in the area because they are against the national park like we are here. And ESG plays a critical role in there, and which we love to adapt as well.
And that's a good point. This operation is not in the middle of the Atacama Desert or the middle of WA or Siberia, like Mt Carbine. It's close to infrastructure, people, operations, infrastructure, all those sorts of things.
Yeah, and they're well down the road with their solar plan, as we plan to do as well. But daytime solar, they're certainly way down the road on that, Pete, as well, to get that implemented into their operation.
And quite a few questions around this item. With the other opportunities for the European Union critical mineral grants for that operation.
Yeah, like people were kind of questioning us when we put out an announcement a while back, a couple of months back, about the Raw Material Alliance and what's that all about, right? Well, it was all about this, right? That we've been working with them for a long time to understand what our success rate would be to be able to access low interest debt, low grant funding, to be able to plug this gap on critical metals that they find themselves in Europe. So we've been actively involved, and with our partner Cronimet, right, have been involved in Europe for years and years. So it's not a strange fit for us, right, to take this on. So we're quite excited, and myself personally, I've seen the questions as well, and I've run multiple operations as well in the past, so it's not a big stretch in different jurisdictions.
Just on different jurisdictions, the recent award of the Wolfram camp, can you give us an update on the plan for that?
Yeah, no worries there, Pete. There you go. Tony, I'm going to turn this one over to Tony. Yeah.
Wolfram camp's up in the Herberton Tin Tungsten field, not far. It's an hour's drive from here, on by road. It's a lot less in straight distance, but we were one of 15 odd tenderers for that project, which was held by the government. We won that tender, and what the government's done is allowed us to have a EPM there to search for other extensions of Wolfram Camp for a few years before we take on the responsibilities of the mine. We see that, again, it's under-drilled, the potential's open and just needs a new set of eyes. I guess in these two pictures, it summarised a little bit of that. I always like the old historic data. You can see the one on the left there. You can see there's the veining coming down. So in actual fact, it's always been thought of as a Grisen deposit along the contact there, but everything tells us that it's more a vein style deposit with better depth extensions. Nearly all of it's only been drilled to 100 metres. So you can see here there's a number of other prospects around. So one of our duties will be to look, can we do a larger pit? There's the first one. Secondly, understand the whole depth extension part. And so that's just Wolfram Camp. The license we get from the government is large. There's the location there. You can see it relevant to us here, and there it is there. And the other major deposit in this area is Watershed. But we're already reinterpreting the geological history, and that's so important. What we like about this area, that there's 7 different ages of intrusive activity. It's a thing called bimodal, where they go from acid to things, so that generates a lot of the right fluids for mineralization. So we like all those features, and we're super excited to apply some of our modern techniques that have worked very well at Mt Carbine to take them down to Wolfram Camp. And so under the company now, we've got 800 square kilometres of some of the best tungsten tin areas in Queensland. So super excited. Our team's growing, so we've finally got the people to do some serious work there.
Well, that takes me just to probably the final question. It seems like not long ago we were talking about the discovery of the King veins, and then we had the pit to be dewatered, and that happened pretty quickly, and we've had great government involvement and engagement. You've had the bankable feasibility study came together, as you said it would. The funding's all been there. It's been a pretty good trip, and this acquisition really rounds out what's been a pretty amazing 12 months, 18 months. Critical minerals, it's the talk of most of the investment landscape at the moment. How do you see what you're achieving here amongst your critical minerals peers?
Peter, I think that it is, like I said, tungsten is very critical in my opinion, right? If China was to shut off the supply like they did on germanium or threatened to, it really puts a lot of hardship into the Western world. So I think having these 2 tungsten mines up and running quickly, and we achieved that through the acceleration, critical metals acceleration fund as well. Like, that was a big win for us, and a lot of others threw in money after that, right? So the government played a real important role of stimulus in this. So yeah, I think between Tony and I, we have 120 years of mistakes, right? So we try not to apply them anymore to other operations that we take on, right? So I think I think we get enough experience to know when we're getting ourselves into trouble or not. But we think Saloro is just a wonderful opportunity. It's a great fit between managements and easy integration for us, in my opinion.
And perhaps finally for shareholders who are already in the company or those looking to invest in critical minerals in some way, what is your view of the current situation for tungsten and the outlook in the near term? Or with no crystal balls, of course, but you know, it's the commodity that you're mining.
Yeah, so we see a couple of drivers, in my opinion. We see a Niabolt, the fast battery charging, coming on with their first factory in 2025. 6-minute charge on batteries using a tungsten anode, going to soak up another 5% of the world's tungsten almost with that factory alone. That's more in robots, apparently. And then secondly is the US military saying they're not going to buy any more Chinese tungsten, and the strategic stockpiles are at almost zero in all countries. So if they decide to restart restocking this, then I think you're going to see tungsten really have a very rapid ramp up.
So you're well positioned as our shareholders. Any final message for shareholders and potential investors listening today?
Yeah, I think, like I said, at Carbine, we don't see anything stopping us on our development path from the feasibility study. We're on target and rolling up, right? So I think it's a big growth path, having a strategic shareholder like Oaktree on your side with global power. I think it's an excellent buy on the shares right now.
Yeah, so do we. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Tony. And thanks to our audience today. There were some questions come through, and I'll ask you to send any others that you may have through to me at peter@nwrcommunications.com.au. We'll make sure Kevin gets them all, and he's always happy to respond. So thank you, gentlemen, for joining us, and thanks to our audience today as well.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.